Live. We're alive.
Well, it's another Friday. We've all survived our week.
That's good. That's good. Fridays are always a fun day, right? Or
Fridays
Sundays?
are fun days.
Yeah.
Friday fun day, yeah.
Yeah.
Thursday night's my CW class. So
How was that?
it was good. I actually practiced beforehand. When I don't practice, it's really bad. But it's been great. It was Craig put me onto CW Ops and giving it a try. It was a great way to work on my CW. So
How's your speed?
it's good enough. It's all about word recognition now, so let's just practice.
Do you use a paddle or a straight key?
I use paddle and I practice when I go for a walk and play things on my iPod. And
Good.
we'll see how. Anyway, so we're live. We're just waiting for people to join. We'll start in a few minutes.
Yes.
And we'll get into introductions and go from there. So
there's an opening on 6 meters. If people are listening, have you been aware of that, Mike?
Not today, although my buddy who is north of me, north of Toronto, by the way, was on 2 meter meteor scatter this morning and almost had a QSO with the Texas station. And he's only running 30 watts into an 8-element beam that's at 40 feet. So, sort of the type of thing you can do off the roof of his house. So,
hello, cool. Travis. People are, hey, John Watson.
And Raymond.
It's so good to have everybody here so we can share.
Yeah, good.
Experiences.
This is some more parts of the hobby I love, from the 2 meter, 6 meter scatter, like HF, if some part of it's not really working, because of conditions, there's always something else to try.
Yeah.
It's great.
And if 6 meters is open, most of the time it means that 10 meters is also open and 2 meters is also open. Yeah.
Well, good. We're getting some additional traffic this week. That's exciting.
Yes. Hi, Juan Jose. Echo Alpha 1 Charlie Juliet.
Wow, we've got Mike 0, Bravo Quebec number 1, I guess. And
Bravo Papa.
What's the mic I'm using? So this is a Rode mic. It's a podcasting mic. I really love it. And not only that, it's really heavy, so it makes a good weapon if you need one. Oh, shall we get started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Mike, VI3MW. I'm in Toronto. We've got JP in Austin, Texas, and Matt also in Austin, Texas. Matt's our guest today, also from Flex Radio. We all work for Flex and spend our whole week here and have a great time. And like most of us, we have been doing social distancing, and if any of you are first responders and are involved with hospitals or anything to do with getting shut-ins, meals, or whatever, because hams tend to do that a lot. We all thank you, because, as I say, that's probably not what you signed up for in some cases. But wow, we are so glad you're there. JP, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to extend. I want to say thank you to our first responders, especially here in Texas. Things are slowly opening. I mean, it's going to take time for get back to a normal life. But well, we here at Flex, we're working at the speed of light. Our shipping is working very, very good. So we're still shipping radios at a very, very fast pace. So everything is working fine here on Austin. Matt, anything you want to add?
No, yeah, you guys covered it. We are really thankful for Flex Radio, just to be working at Flex Radio, because Flex Radio honestly has continued almost business as usual. We've been able to work on shift work at the operations center here at the headquarters. We're really thankful to be able to continue to ship radios and service radios. Our service and shipping team have been fantastic and continuing to keep that going. But most of our operation has been able to run from home. So we have a big government contract that we've been working on, and that entire team has been working from home. Our intent is to continue to work from home for at least the foreseeable immediate future, just to make sure that our entire team is safe. And but we'll continue shipping radios and all that. And I do want to also thank the first responders and doctors. And one of the things that came up just the other day, this quick aside, I went to the pharmacy and I told the pharmacist, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the front line. I was the first person that had told her that. It's like, how is that possible? I mean, you are doing something that's such a great service to the community. And so anyways, we should be thankful. We're thanking these individuals a lot. So
I do that all the time. In fact, for the Canadians, every time I go to Tim Hortons, I say thanks, and that's a Canadian inside thing. Carry on.
Yeah. Well, should I just jump in, Mike?
Yeah. So I've asked Matt to join us and just give us a little bit of Flex Radio history and a bit of the stuff we're working on, and we'll just see how it goes, where we go.
Yeah. So as you can see, I'm working at my home office here, which just so happens to be a guest bedroom. I work about 3 miles from the headquarters, so I've never really needed, a full office. But it's kind of funny because this kind of brought me back around when I was preparing for this. It's kind of a full circle thing where Flex Radio got its start at home. And so Gerald Youngblood, who was on last week, is my father, and the company originated at the kitchen table at his house, which he still lives. And so that was back when I was in high school. And I begrudgingly would help push parts into bags, because at that time we were doing the SCR 1000, which was sold as a kit. And so we'd all sit at the kitchen table and we would push 5 screws into a bag and zip that up, and
your mom as well.
Yes, I mean the entire family.
Oh wow!
So we would box stuff up in the living room. So Flex Radio was at the house for a couple of years. Now I actually went off to college and had nothing really to do with it for the most part until I ended up doing an internship with Flex Radio around my senior year. So I was back in 2007. And so at that point, the Flex 5000 had launched. And when I started full-time as on staff, that was in January of 2008, the 5000 was in full swing. So not too long after that. One thing I wanted to say is, so one of the things I like to joke about is Gerald has this presentation that's excellent. So if you get a chance to watch it, it's called The Accidental Company. And so Gerald likes to talk about the accidental company. I like to talk about the accidental family company. So it really was an accident that Flex Radio became a family business. So just so happened that my brother-in-law, Eric, was graduating from UT. Let's see, when was that? I'm trying to remember the timeline. I want to say 2005 or so. And with a computer science degree. And so Flex Radio needed some help from software. And so he came on board there. He was looking for something to do. And so I actually had no intention of working for Flex Radio. I actually had the opposite aspirations. I didn't want to just jump into the family business or into the, to the family company. But I had gone to Texas A&M, got a business degree, and ended up doing that internship and finding that a small business is a really fascinating place to apply business theory. And so I really enjoyed that aspect that, at Flex Radio, you could take business theory and then immediately apply it in the workplace. So that's kind of what led me to working at Flex Radio. So I think once I came on board, it was kind of more considered a family business at that point. But again, it was an accident. So skip forward a little bit. The 5000 was selling well, but we recognized that it had pretty much reached its shelf life. As far as the amount that we could stretch that technology, it was based on kind of what we called a spaghetti bowl code base, where everything was just intertwined, and so it really wasn't scalable for the long term. And so we made this decision that we were going to start completely over with a blank sheet of paper and redesign a radio from the ground up for the future. And so obviously that's the genesis of the 6000 series and Smart SDR. And so the piece of this story that I like to tell is more from the sales side, because I've been doing sales since I started at the company. And so I like to talk about like what kind of sales, I guess motivators drove the decisions towards how we got to where we were today. And so, ever since we've been going to Dayton, which would have been this next week, ever since we've been going to Dayton, we've been having customers approach the booth and say, man, software-defined radio, I know it's the future. I know it's, this is where everything's going to go. And they would always have this but can't get there yet, And that was really frustrating, especially for a sales guy, because it's, I recognize the benefits that a software-defined radio provided. And so we used to have this phrase that we would say, and I think even one of our customers put together a T-shirt for us that said, "Real radios don't need knobs." And we laugh about that in retrospect. Like,
that's a great one.
Really that's a great one. Have some knobs. We kind of went there kicking and screaming, but we came across the idea of doing the Maestro. And so Maestro was fascinating because there was an initial 3D rendering that kind of came up, and it was one of those light bulb moments where you see it and you immediately get the benefit. And it actually wasn't too terribly different from what Maestro ended up becoming. Now we worked with some contesters, K9CT and 4 Oscar 3 Alpha, to help us design the layout and that sort of thing. But the really neat thing about Maestro was that it really executed on the vision of what the architecture was, right? The whole idea was that it's software defined and flexible, upgradable, but also remotable, right? And so the Maestro gave kind of the best of both worlds, where we had the physical user interface, but combined with the vision for the 6000 series. So
can I interrupt you there? Because I remember we were in Dayton and we were in the basement, and I was just new on the Alpha team. And I had driven from Toronto like a banshee to get to this meeting, which was 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon on a Thursday. And of course, now I know what happens on the Thursday. I mean, it's bad enough then to also have the Alpha meeting halfway across town. So we're all gathering outside, and all our phones just rang. So that's why you see those two guys go at you. So they walk in, and this thing is all wrapped up. And Gerald says to me, "Do you know what the Maestro is?" And I go, "I have no idea what the Maestro is." But I was also a big remote operator by this point in time, because I have no clue what the Maestro is. But I'll tell you what I need. And Gerald says, "What's that?" He says, "I need a control head for my Flex 6000 radio to sit at home while my radio is 100 miles away, with knobs and everything on it." And the color drained out of Gerald's face because he wondered how I knew. And for me, it was just a guess. So sure enough, an hour later, it comes in and pulls the tea towel off this thing. And the first thing I said really loud was, "Am I ever glad you didn't make that small, that the display was what it is?" So it was a defining moment. I get it. Probably the ones who saw it. It's the same thing. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah, but another kind of fascinating thing from the kind of the sales side was, so we have this term that we say, in the company, where we say, customers coming across the carpet. So that's kind of a trade show term, where it's like we've got a carpet on the floor, and there are people that would stand right at the edge of the carpet, and we'd be trying to coax them in, right? And so prior to Maestro, people would really stand at the edge of the carpet. Once Maestro came out, that was really the drawing in across the carpet that really it was a game changer for us. It changed the perception of Flex Radio. Single-handedly, it changed the perception. We were now a radio that could be accessible to the masses. And so that really caused our sales to take off. But what else was interesting about that I found was it was still just a little too much. So the only downside from a sales guy's perspective on the Maestro is that it requires 2 separate purchases. And so we found that was kind of fascinating, because that was still an extra step for people coming across the carpet. And so obviously, what's the logical next step? is to integrate the Maestro into the front panel of the radio. And so that's actually how the form factor design of the Flex 6400 and 6600, and then of course the M models came to be, is because we designed it literally around the form factor of Maestro. And so sometimes we'll get people ask, why is Maestro or the 6400 so much taller than the 6300, 6500 or whatever? And that's a significant contributor to that, is because we wanted to utilize the same chassis for all 4 models, and but we wanted to have Maestro integrated in the front, so that really drove a lot of the design decisions there. But we picked up some other benefits there as well. So allowed us to kind of reconfigure the inside of the radio, where in the 6300, 6500, 6700, we use kind of 2 big boards inside the radio. So you have a lot of components on a single board. So it made that one board a lot more expensive. So what we did is we ended up kind of chopping it up into smaller pieces. So that made it to where repairability becomes a lot easier, because now one of the things we do is when a radio comes in for repair, we have a gold standard board set, and they'll swap it out. And if it fixes it, that will be the repair that's done, is that we put in a known good working board and then can ship a radio back and then work on the bad board without delaying the customer's radio. Another thing is we got to put in a nice large 6-inch fan. Because of the vertical height, we were able to fit that one 6-inch fan in there and kept it really cool. So those were a couple of things that were neat that we gained as a result. But after the M model, we kind of had the next step was to have high power. And so the Power Genius XL was kind of the next step in that equation. And so really this is all building around this vision of a networked radio. So we actually like to say, we kind of have two phrases around this. We say the software is the radio. So Smart SDR is really the core of the radio, but it's actually even more than that. We now like to say the network is the radio. The networking of the radio is really something that's quite compelling, especially
we all have networks, right? So it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and especially in a time like this, right, where we are kind of confined. I think that it's useful because like I'll log into a radio at the office. I know customers that they have their radios in another room and they can bring their Maestro into the living room, that sort of thing. But all of these things, so the radios, the Maestro, the Power Genius, all of those are built around a network architecture, to where the idea is you plug it in, you connect it to SmartLink, and you can operate from wherever. And so we obviously have Maestro, we have Smart SDR for the desktop that you can run on a laptop, and then we also have an iOS app, which is excellent, so you can run from an iPhone or iPad. But one of the neat things I like that I want to talk about is that we've actually recently come to a marketing agreement with Remote Ham Radio, because Remote Ham Radio has decided to move completely to Flex radios for their architecture. And so they have a really neat business model where they've got high performance stations scattered throughout the US, but mostly focused on the Northeast. They have a couple of massive main stations out there. And so you can actually log into their radios, which are Smart SDRs, and operate their stations. And they're even integrating Maestro into that, to where you'll be able to use Maestro on their station. So it's really, really neat that this is fulfilling the vision that we've had for this architecture since the beginning, is being able to operate the radio remotely like that. So one final thing I'll say about that is another neat thing that's really showing up is...
I was going to interrupt you there. I was blown away by how successful they are, because I'm pretty thrifty ham at times, and I went, this will never work, but it's working. It's surprising.
It's a really great service, but this actually ties to my next point, was that we're seeing contesters operating contests completely remotely now. And we had some extremely significant success stories come out of the recent contests. Remote Ham Radio, the team kind of involved there had set up a group, actually containing a whole bunch of youth operators, and they had, I want to say they had number one. I'm trying to remember what their category win was, but it was a significant win. And then we also have partnered with Delta 4 Charlie, which is a large contest station, and they ran their contests. I think a lot of that remote, had a big success there. So we're seeing a lot of remote contesting, which is really fascinating and exciting.
Yesterday, I had an interview with a big contesting station from Spain, and his statement was, "Remote is the future of contesting." And I was like, wow. Seriously?
Yeah, it's a big,
Yeah.
because I used to go remote north of here, and I'd have to Friday afternoon take the day off work or the day before, drive 4 hours to a station that's quiet, remote, finish the contest at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, then drive home, usually in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to.
Yeah. Well, this is something that we anticipate happening, is that it's going to be enabling technology for contesters, where before, in order to run a multi-one or multi-single or multi contest, you had to be physically present with one another. That, of course, is not really possible in the state of world that we live in today. But a remote contest, you could do that. Actually, I just saw a question pop up. It's
how many people
can
log into one radio?
One radio at a time. So you can actually, we have a functionality we call multiflex, which is you can have two people operating the same radio at the same time. So you could actually have someone operating as a run operator, and you could have a mult operator, and they can be using the same radio at the same time. It's really, really quite compelling, and also with Power Genius as well. So you can run that at high power, and either operator or both operators can be remote.
I want to operate your station, Mike. We should do that live. Yeah. The other day he pull it up. Oh my Lord.
So that was pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about here today. Is there anything
Well, that's
else?
wonderful. JP, any questions? I mean,
yes, I have a very,
because you're new, so you've come in from the outside recently.
Yes.
So
yes.
carry on.
Yeah. Well, this is a very simple question. I mean, I've been listening to the entire story about how Flex Radio was born, and it was a family business. Who came out with the Flex Radio name? Do you have a story about that?
So, as I recall, so Flex Radio, I think, was Gerald's idea originally. But the story I do remember is that Eric Waxman, so my brother-in-law that I mentioned earlier, he actually designed the original logo with the 4 shades of blue through just kind of like a online tool, just using kind of off-the-shelf solution. Funny story about that. I want to say like 5-6 years ago, somebody sent me an email and said, "Hey, look at this! Somebody's ripping off your logo," and it's because some other company had used those same 4 lines with the line that goes under the words, whatever. From whatever tool that was, and so it popped up that way. But that's kind of the origination of the logo, which has, of course, morphed over time. So we used to have software-defined radio underneath. The text was a little different. The waves had a line that kind of carried on under the logo, and we'll continue to mold that over time. And you'll see that actually here pretty soon. That'll continue to mold over time to kind of fit the future of Flex Radio. So,
yes.
Yeah, more and more clubs. I mentioned a friend of mine, the Mississauga Club here in Toronto, which is a suburb of Toronto, is, we got them, or they purchased a 6600 through Radio World here in Canada, and then they're starting the whole club thing too. And then Andy phones me the other day, he goes, "I need another radio. We've got the 66, but just 64 or 63 would fit a niche here, right?" And then and so it starts. But he's he just blown away with the ease of integration, and there's a lot more to happen in that world too. And we're just starting to crack it open and really get to it.
Yeah, my personal experience is that I come from analog radios, 1 receiver, 2 receivers. That's about it. And the first time that I was introduced to the 6600M, that was my first introduction to Flex. I was like, I'm never going to use this. 4 radios, 4 receivers. I don't need that. Like, people are crazy. Like, these
or
guys,
the
like,
8 in a 6700.
exactly. There's a video on YouTube. There's a ham showing how he does FT8 on 8 different bands at the same time. I was like, nah, I will never do that. Just give me my band. I'll work what I have to work. Please don't take away my 4 receivers now. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. It's an experience. It's something that you have to experience. If you're new to Flex Radio and you never own a Flex Radio, it's something that you need to really experience it for yourself. We can here talk about all the features, and yeah, Mike, you want to say something?
I was going to say, because Matt and I've said this before, SDR is a technology between the antenna and the speaker. It was tubes, and then it was semiconductors, and and then the little tiny things and stuff. And it's, your phone is an SDR radio. You really don't care what happens between the antenna and the microphone and the speaker. It's the exact same concept. So
yeah, they're asking about diversity.
Diversity.
You want to? Yeah.
So for diversity, yeah. So diversity reception is where we take there are 2 receivers and 2 antennas, and you can do this on the 6600 and the 6700. And in the 5000 series, we had beam steering. And actually, I called Eric the other day because I wanted to know the history of the beam steering, and that was a half-hour-long call. I know, Matt, you lived it, but it was all news to how complicated that was, and some of the equipment you had to rent to test it and stuff. And but diversity. Personally went through this in Secure Worldwide at the end of March on Saturday night here in Toronto. There was a huge thunderstorm in the Ohio Valley, and all I could hear were guys that were like near me and about 20 over. So, I'd been operating for about 18 hours, and I had this aha moment that going, oh, wait, I've got diversity. And I finally turned it on my inverted V on 80. And then I have a active receiving whip on the other. And then all of a sudden, just with one in one ear and one in the other, because the signals move up and down, and they were walking around in my head. But now I'm copying the 6s in California on 80 meters as the night went on, and I was able to get the serial numbers. And I came to work, and Matt will tell you, I said to everybody, I don't know whose idea this was, but this is a game changer for me. This definitely got 400 cues I probably wasn't going to get because I was going to call it quits. So that's what you need for diversity, and is the ability to listen. And you really, ideally, in a perfect world, you want them coming in 2 different phases. You want to get the vertical waves or the horizontal waves. But there were times when John V3EJ is a good friend of mine. He's about 100 miles away, and he called me and he blew away my left ear, which was just on the active antenna, and I couldn't hear him on the big antenna at all. And then then the ionosphere warped around a bit, and he showed up on my other ear in between. But it's pretty cool. If you've never tried it.
It looks like we have a few questions about kind of futures. I could talk about that for a minute, kind of what's going on at Flex Radio and what that looks like for the future. So I guess there's kind of a multi-part answer. So part of this is, we've talked about this publicly here, but I think it'd be worth repeating that we back mid last year, we won a major government contract. And this was, it's called the HF modernization for the U.S. Air Force. And so this is really significant because this really is transforming our company. So since that was back in kind of May, June when the award was originally given, we have more than doubled the size of our company since then. Much of that, if not most of that, is on the engineering side. Well, no, I say that. Much of that is on the engineering side, but we actually have added, of course, like JP is an addition since then. We've added resources back in service and shipping on our operations side. So this has really been significant for Flex Radio. But what else is really interesting about this is we've seen a significant increase in commercial side opportunities, and almost exclusively all of those opportunities have come through relationships with ham radio operators, including our major current contract. And so the reason why I say that is because we see amateur radio as strategic for our company for the long term. And so we see that amateur radio is advancing radio as an art, And that's what's enabled us to create the technology that has allowed us to win that contract. And it has the relationships that allow us in the doors to generate those opportunities. So all that to say, our hearts are in amateur radio and our strategy is in amateur radio. So that means that we're going to continue to invest there. Now, for the short term, much of our attention, of course, is going to this government contract, which had a very rapid deployment. So we're looking at delivering this year. So that's very quick to get to a prototype for delivery. A lot of the work that we're doing there, and this is something we've done across the history of the company, is work that we do on the commercial side, we roll back into the amateur radio side. So I do believe, while I don't have anything that I can specifically talk about today, you will see a lot of that type of work come into amateur radio. The other benefit is as I mentioned, we've scaled up our engineering staff significantly, and as those resources become more available, those resources are going to be applied to advancing the amateur radio side of things, which, as you all know, we have quite a list of desired features and that sort of thing. I should caveat what I've been saying, that it's not that we're not doing work on amateur radio. I'm just saying we're going to be able to apply additional resources on top of that. So for example, there was someone who asked about I think it was a scope or something on what was it? Modulation scope on Smart SCR. The nice thing about a software-defined radio is that's just a user interface thing. And I am oversimplifying that some, but that's certainly possible that we could do that. And we do have that concept captured in our list of things to do. It's not something I can give a committed time frame for, but we have no shortage of ideas on what we can do. The hard part is trying to decide which things to do.
So, yeah, all the time we're adding features to that list. Yeah.
Somebody asked about an Android app. So quick story about that. So our iOS app was actually designed by Marcus Rashkosh. I think is how you say his last name. What's his call sign?
Oh yeah, ask me that. I'll look it up.
Yeah, amazing guy. He took our application programmer interface, our API, and wrote that entire application in a matter of a handful of weeks. And he shared that with us, and we said, this is fantastic. We'd like to put our name on it. And so that's how the iOS app came to be. Now, Marcus receives all the proceeds from that. So, Flex Radio doesn't actually receive direct revenue from the application. However, of course, it adds a significant value to us as a company because, it builds upon our brand story, which is networking. So Android, to talk about that, we would love.
I'll interrupt you. Delta Lima 8, Mike Radio Echo.
Yeah, and so if you get a chance, if you're an iOS user, thank him. He's fantastic. But regarding Android, is we would love to have an Android app. So if you know somebody who would be interested in doing something equivalent to that, please have them contact us. You can just have them send a note to sales@flexradio.com or something like that. We've actually looked at engaging with a couple other developers in that capacity in the past, but just through various circumstances hasn't followed through. So we'd love to know someone who'd be willing to do that, because we absolutely want one.
So I had a call last night with a customer as well at 10 o'clock, and I grabbed it, and sure enough, he goes, I'm an Android developer. I'm gonna get into it. So I said, well, let me know, and we'll engage with you a bit. So whatever we need.
I see a question about the tuner. And that's
TGX.
Yeah, the tuner is a tuner that we're designing as a companion for the Power Genius XL amplifier. So this would be a high power 2000 watt capable tuner. So the news on the tuner is we've seen final hardware. We actually have been in field testing. We've got an additional round of field testing coming with some modifications that we found. That's coming up here over the next couple of months. That is all progressing well, and we're really pleased with the progress now. The project started later than we had hoped, of course, as a result of getting to market a little later than we expected on Power Genius, but we're really pleased with the progress that that's making, and hope to have an announcement or a public statement on that here before too long. So that's what I have on the tuner today.
That's good.
Let's see.
I'm really happy about the way we are able to interact with our users, because we don't have Dayton cancel, unfortunately. So now this gives us a chance to interact with our customers and potential and just hams all over the world. Maybe we should mention something about Dayton. What do you think, man?
Good idea.
Should we or
Yeah.
Well,
I'm laughing because I was getting text messages. This, don't forget to, talk about that.
Well, people love sales and they love Dayton. And on Monday, starting Monday, we're going to start running the Dayton sales. So I would advise for people to set a calendar reminder and get ready, get those mouse clicks ready for Monday, because you're going to see some sales prices going for Dayton, and also something very important, that is that on top of the revenue. Would you like to describe the mouse and wheel, the Meals on Wheels initiative that we're going to be running?
Yeah, so we're calling this the Do Good campaign, and obviously we feel very strongly about the current state of the world, and we at Flex Radio want to do something to contribute to that. So a portion of every radio sale that we receive during the month of May is going towards Meals on Wheels, which is an organization that brings food in particular to elderly who are heavily impacted by the coronavirus. So every single sale that we make in the month of May, we're going to be dedicating a portion of the proceeds of those sales. We also are having a company match on that, where our employees, if they give towards it, our company is going to match that. So we're really encouraged and pleased to be partnering with Meals on Wheels. And so you'll be seeing more and more information about that throughout the month as well. So that's on top of or separate, but in addition to the discounts we're giving, we're also giving a portion of the proceeds.
So we have the sale going on, and also we have financing. That's something that we have to mention. For all our products on our website, you're going to see a button that says financing. So click on that button so you can go through the process, and that will give you an extra option in terms of payment for radios. Also, a customer yesterday told me something that I didn't know, is that PayPal is offering financing, no interest, for 6 months. So if you would like to pay with PayPal, just let us know, and you can cancel the payment with 0 interest for the next 6 months. That's something to have in mind also.
So JP, how do they get hold of you?
What do you mean?
So you can
Elon Musk. No, he's not with PayPal anymore. Yeah.
So if you
I have
want to
the
get hold of
PayPal T-shirt under the Flex Radio. That's what you're trying to say?
No, so if people want to get hold of sales, and you can email us at sales@flexradio.com. You can also call us at 512-535-4713, and just hit extension 1 or number 1. And yeah, it does ring, and rings all our phones at once. And if we're busy, we don't have a chance to pick up the phone, please leave a message. We do return our messages, so it doesn't go into a black hole or /dev/null for those programmer types that'll understand what that means. Patrick had a question. Will multiflex allow one operator run 2 6500s for diversity? No, it does not. Although I guess you could bring the audio in. I think JP, this is sort of what you're playing with right now, is bringing in 2 disparate audio.
I didn't want to bring it up, to cause chaos.
Anyway, he's bickering with it.
Yeah.
But out of the box, no. But there's a lot of opportunity to do experiment in that area.
Yeah, third-party applications.
So that's it for now. Unless Matt, anything else to add? Thanks for taking part into your busy day. I know you're you're swamped, and even had to run away about 3 minutes to the part of our presentation for a customer question. So
yeah, really enjoyed it, and guys. Really appreciate you all doing this. I know this is creating a lot of value for our enthusiast group there. So
yeah, and I hope it's providing some information, a bit of history, and with date not happening, it's not the the personal conversation you can generally have, but we're getting a little bit closer. So everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe as usual. Get on the air, and I guess we'll see you maybe next week. We'll figure out who we're going to bring on next week, and we'll have a lot of fun.
We have a secret guest.
I got a couple in mind. They don't. I got a couple in mind, but they don't know who it is yet. So
yes.
If I was actually if we actually had an office we were in, I'm sure that it's me walking down the hall and hide, so I'd drag them in. So thanks, everybody. Right. Have a great weekend.
73s.
Take care. 73. Bye-bye.
And